I was able to get the regular care that I was giving to everyone else. And chiropractors are famous for this, right? They take care of everybody else in the world, but we don't take care of ourselves.
Welcome to AMC. I'm Dr. Greg Miller, and we're in a series on associate practices. Today we're going to cover choosing the right candidate with Dr. Todd Osborne. Let's get started.
I want to talk to you today about associate practicing, or the possibility of bringing an associate into your practice. And I know in the chiropractic profession there's all kinds of horror stories out there. There's a saying out there that, chiropractors eat their young. And so there's just a lot of negativity about associate practices, both from the head doctor's side of things and those that were the associates. But I want to tell you, there are good and positive things about associate practicing, and there's ways to do it correctly. The first thing you really need to look at is, are you ready for an associate? Is your practice prepared for that associate to come in? And so the first thing you have to look at is there the need? There's three things in your practice that will choke it or slow it down from growth, and that's either the physical space, that's the staff, or the doctor themselves. So if any of those reach a saturation point, then that can hinder the growth of the practice. So first thing is it the doctor at a saturation level and the practice can grow no further? And if that's the case, then you need to look at that. The second thing you need to be prepared for is, do you have the income level in your practice to support that associate? Because bringing the associate in doesn't mean instantaneous income. So that associate is going to need to be supported, paid if you will, for a certain amount of time, and it may take some time, depending on your practice, for them to start producing the amount of money that they're being paid. So are you stable enough to endure that for 3 to 6 months until that associate has their practice at that level where it's paying and actually hopefully bringing in income for you? So the other thing to think about is your staff ready for that? Does the staff prepared to handle two-doctor practice? Are you expanding hours, or are you going to do the same hours with two doctors? So either way, do you have the staff with the ability to handle that, or do you need to add staff and have them trained and ready? And of course, the physical space comes into play. If you are going to be working the same hours, there may certainly be a need for you to expand your square footage or rearrange your square footage for that. If you're working the opposite hours of each other, if you will, then there's a possibility that that space will work just fine for you. So these are all things to think about. What are the advantages of bringing in that associate? Well, obviously, it can help grow your practice. It can increase the numbers. Obviously, the doctor hours that they have to produce is expanded, and so this can increase your practice. Can it add income? Absolutely. It can grow the income, but it's not going to grow the income substantially for you, especially in the beginning stages, because you are also adding the overhead and paying that associate for their production levels. But you do gain some income off of that. I think one of the most important things it does for a lot of doctors is it buys you time. And so as that associate comes in, now that may give you more time to be able to do some other things income-wise that you may want to do, whether that's another dimension to your practice, or maybe you're wanting to do some outside investing in real estate or some other factor that can bring income into you. So that allows you time. For me personally, it has allowed me time to be able to go out and help other chiropractors with what I do. So that's just an example, but there's many, many things out there. And here's what I also say, the most important reason for me when I first got an associate was the fact that I was able to get the regular care that I was giving to everyone else. And chiropractors are famous for this, right? They take care of everybody else in the world, but we don't take care of ourselves because we don't go get adjusted. We don't take the time out of our practice. Of course, a lot of times we're practicing the same hours that our colleagues are practicing, and so it's difficult for us to do that. So for me, when I added the associate, one of the biggest factors was my health improved. And then as my health improved, then obviously I was able to practice more and have more fun with that practice, and the practice grew from that situation. So many reasons to look at it from a lead doctor's perspective, and that is, do you want to expand the hours of the clinic? Do you want to keep working your same hours and your same productivity level and add with what the associate can bring into it? Or are you wanting to slow down and not work as many hours and let the associate take over some of those hours so you can do some other things? Or it might be just to add another dimension to your practice. And it might be that you want to run the chiropractic side, but you want to bring in the associate in for other factors in your practice, whether that be nutrition or some type of functional nutrition that you want to do inside your practice. So those are all options for you in adding that associateship. This needs to be mutually beneficial. We hear the horror stories and the negative things about it, and so many former associates are soured on the idea of it because of the way they were treated. Lead doctors are soured by it because of the way they were treated by the associate. And so most of the time, it's just not mutually beneficial. So it has to be set up that way so that the lead doctor, they get benefits from it, but the associate doctor is also rewarded and gets benefits from it. And so I would ask you this as the lead doctor, are you ready to bring in that associate? Because not only does it mean that you're going to have to pay that associate, but you're also going to be responsible for training that associate. You're going to have to commit that extra time in the beginning to get them trained and get them up to speed so that they can be successful. And that's your responsibility as the lead doctor, is to help them be successful, not just to hire somebody and throw them to the wolves and expect them to be successful and to grow your practice, if you will, but your responsibility is to give and train and make sure that they're successful. Two things that are so important to having that successful associateship, that successful relationship, if you will. And number one, the most important factor is the hiring process. And what I mean by that is doing your due diligence, vetting, making sure this is the right associate doctor to come into your practice. And if you don't do that, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So I would rather see you take 6 months to a year to get the right person in there versus just hiring someone because you have the need and you need someone in there. And you will regret that, because the wrong associate can come in and really tear down your practice instead of help building it up. So make sure you hire the right one. That's number one. Number two is having a system in place in your office. If your system is just whatever you've developed and you've used with your personality over time, don't expect anyone else to be able to come in and do that, to just recreate you, because it's your system and it works for you, but it may not work for everyone else. So have a system in place in your practice that includes training. You have a system that's reproducible. And so it can be one doctor, second doctor, third doctor, fourth doctor, and everyone can utilize it and be successful at it. That also helps your training procedures because everybody knows what they're doing. And so I would encourage you, if you are considering adding the associate and you don't have a system, that you get one in place before you do that. So I hope this helps you think about associate practicing and adding that to your practice.
Thanks for joining us today. We've got regular webinars that go into even more detail on this topic. Check the description for more ways to get our content and sign up. If you'd like more information about AMC and how it might help your practice, you can always reach us at www.amcfamily.com.